Hey man, hey, look, it's prom night, man. Can you buy me some alcohol?
Yeah, I guess so. Got
Thanks,
some
man.
money? All right.
Princess, your date's here. Come on down, sweetheart.
Here you go, man.
I don't know. Forget that, man.
Hi, I'm Ken Dail. I'm the Executive Director at Prevention Network. Today we're going to talk to some of the people from the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking, also known as MCRUD. MCRUD's been around for about 16 years, and today we're going to talk to the coalition coordinator, as well as a couple of the steering committee members. First, we're going to talk to Janine Kravetz from Bay County. Janine, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, the work you do there in Bay County, and what you're doing for MCRUD?
Well, in Bay County, I'm on the Bay County Prevention Network, and the Prevention Network not only focuses on substance abuse prevention as well as mental health prevention. And we've been involved particularly with underage drinking as well as drinking and driving prevention. And we also have a subcommittee called CAPT, which is Communities Addressing Alcohol Problems Together. And our subcommittee is focusing on youth, helping us to prevent underage drinking in Bay County.
Oh, great. So how long have you been involved with MCRUD?
I've been on the MCRUD steering committee for about 4 years. And I got involved because I wanted to gather more information in terms of what's happening at the state to help me bring that information down to the local level.
Okay, great. And I understand you're the chair-elect, so you'll be taking over sometime in the next couple months here?
Correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about kind of what are you thinking, where would you like to see MCRUD go with you as the chair in the next year? Any exciting plans or?
I'd like to see us focus on maybe one or two projects instead of being maybe too broad-based. Mm-hmm. And I think that will help us bring in more people. I think it will help us have more of a focus to have more collaboration with other people. And so having just one or two focused topics to address, I think will help us to move forward.
Great, great. Now, we know schedules are really tight with everyone these days. Budgets are really tight. Travel time has been reduced all over the state of Michigan. You're still able to come to the MCRUD meetings in Lansing. Mm-hmm. Somebody at your agency must value what you're bringing back to Bay County. Can you talk a little bit about why your employer thinks it's important for you to be at MCRUD, and what are some of the things that you've been able to bring back to Bay County?
Well, I've had a lot of support from my office in terms of prevention, and I think it's really great because I'm the only prevention person at my agency, and Sacred Heart Rehabilitation Center is not only located in Bay City, but we have several offices in Southeast Michigan. Okay. So being the only prevention person, I think I bring a lot of value to the agency in terms of seeing, where prevention fits with our agency and how it even fits to some degree in with treatment and also intervention services. And as far as what MCRUD has helped me to bring back to Bay County, as an example, we had a drug recognition expert come to one of our MCRUD meetings, mm-hmm. and because of him, I was able to tap into our local drug recognition expert at mm-hmm. our Michigan State Police Post, who has been very helpful in working with the Bay County Prevention Network.
Sure, sure. Now, MCRUD has moved over the years. It's moved from the very strong local focus and working with local folks to some more statewide initiatives, and we're even looking at some policy issues now. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of work, does that echo what you've seen happening in Bay County? Are people kind of getting more focused on making bigger changes, or is MCRUD kind of all alone in doing that?
Not at all. We've been focusing on policy issues in Bay County. Particularly, we have a lot of festivals that involve beer tents, and so we've worked with some of the local festival organizers in mm-hmm. terms of looking at some of their policies. And for instance, one of the local festivals, the St. Stan's Festival, now this year just started hiring cab companies and giving them a flat rate fee and then to stay at the festival so that people can get rides home. And so those are some of the things that we've worked with that have, slowly been coming, but it's all baby steps.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's great stuff. What are some things, you mentioned before, you'll be coming in as the chair next year.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned kind of projects and more focused things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any examples? What are some things that you're hoping MCRUD might accomplish over the next year, or aren't you quite there yet with the planning?
A couple things that we've talked about is the Above the Influence campaign, social hosting laws, policies, some things like that. And so hopefully if, depending on the group, the steering committee group, that we can, kind of tap into that and see where, we'd like to go with that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Now, another thing that we hear pretty regularly is that underage drinking is, a lot of people view it as not being as important as
Mm-hmm.
things like prescription drug abuse or medicine abuse or marijuana or some of the hard illicit drugs. How is it, or why is it that MCRUD feels it's so important to focus on underage drinking?
Well, I think one of the things I've experienced personally is that I do first offender drunk driving classes, and I always ask people in the classes, how old were you when you had your first drink? And in a lot of cases, I'll get 13, 14, 15 years old. And people aren't just coming in with drinking and driving offenses. They're coming in with dropping out of school, abusive relationships, blackouts, not going into work, losing jobs. And so when you see how all that trickles down, you can see the long-term effects of what happens when people start drinking at such a young age. And of course, when you talk to employers or the community, it's like drinking has so many facets to it, but in a lot of ways, it all starts in many ways when people start drinking at such a young age, because you're less likely to see that. And I know in my drunk driving classes, if I have people who start drinking after the age of 21, I'm far, far less likely to hear those types of things, but with younger drinking, much more so.
Yeah. So the underage drinking all by itself is leading to all these other issues. It's not necessarily that it's used along with marijuana or other drugs. It really is just the underage drinking that's leading to more issues, not only then, but down the road for them.
Yes, it has an impact on, people don't think of, I got an MIP when I was 16, but it could lead to those other things. I guess as an example, I can think of when I used to work in treatment, I had a 19-year-old who started drinking at a young age. He talked about how much he was drinking every day. And by the time he was 33 years old, he came in for treatment again and had 3 drunk driving offenses, had 2 failed marriages, he lost jobs. Wow. And at that point, he was saying, boy, I wished I would have paid more attention when I was 19 because I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah, wow. So what brought you, you said you've been involved with the steering committee for about 4 years now?
Correct.
What was it that brought you to the MCRUD table back in the beginning, if you can kind of remember what it was? Was it just, did you see a flyer somewhere, or did a boss say, hey, you're going to go to this meeting today? Or
I believe it was the coordinating agency, prevention coordinator has suggested that maybe somebody in the community could get involved with this as a way to kind of tap into something at the state level. So I decided to start going to the meetings.
Well, that's great. We certainly have appreciated your input over the years, and it's so I'm glad that you're there.
Thank you.
What brought you? You mentioned a minute ago that you have done treatment services in the past, provided those services. What kind of brought you into this field in the first place? Why is it that substance abuse treatment and prevention is so important to you?
Well, I started working in the field, just a job that I happened to get out of college. And in fact, my job out of college, I worked at where I was working at today. It used to be called Basis. And then along the way, I've had other jobs and gone to other places, but ended up coming back. And I did start off in prevention. And so even though I've worked in other areas, such as treatment, residential, administrative, prevention was always my first love. Because it was always that knowing what prevention is. I mean, even in just other fields, whether it's dental care or health issues, prevention really is the way to reduce future problems and the costs that go with it.
Sure. And what do you do in Bay County? You mentioned working with youth a little earlier. What are some examples of some of the things that you've been able to do kind of specific to underage drinking, but that you've been able to do in Bay County with young people?
Some of the things we've done with our CAPT committee, and again, CAPT stands for Communities Addressing Alcohol Problems Together, is that the youth have done a variety of projects. For instance, we've done something called Sticker Shock, where we have stickers that state we don't serve teens, and we target specific times of the year to go into stores who allow us to do that, and we will put the stickers on 6-pack, 12-pack cases of beer. And usually it's around Thanksgiving time because that's usually the biggest bar night of the year.
Sure.
And of course, maybe kids are more likely to have access to alcohol then. And also around prom time. We've been involved with the St. Patrick's Day Parade, so we always have an underage drinking float. And in the few, I'm going to say maybe 5 years we've had the float, we've been noticing more thumbs up from the crowd than what we used to get. So that's been a real positive thing.
Yeah.
And so that tells us that, we're making a difference and people are applauding what we're doing.
Right. Well, are there any other things that you'd like to say about either MCRUD in general or your involvement or any way that anything that's going on locally that relates with underage drinking or MCRUD?
I'd like to see more underage drinking focus because, as I mentioned before, it just seems to trickle into so many other things. And that I think that the bottom line is if we're looking at preventing drinking and driving or preventing alcohol-related issues or sexual assaults, a variety of things, I think we really need to start at its core, which is, kids drinking at such a young age. And, research shows that when people wait until they're of the legal drinking age, they're far, far less likely to have issues with alcohol than if they start drinking at younger ages.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your time today.
Very
we
welcome.
certainly look forward to seeing you at MCRUD meetings over the course of the year and seeing where things go.
Okay, you bet.
Thanks.
Yeah, looking good, man. Let's go. Hot day tonight. Got my beer. I'm ready to go. Man, I ain't letting that happen to my car. Put that stuff like that.
Next, we're going to talk to EJ McAndrew, who does work down in Cass County. EJ, can you introduce yourself, tell us what you do and where you do it down in Cass County and what your role with MCRUD is?
Well, my name is EJ McAndrew, and I'm the Substance Use Prevention Coordinator with Woodlands Behavioral Healthcare Network in Cass County, along with various prevention activities and programs. I also am the coordinator of our local coalition, CASS.
All right, and what does CASS stand for?
Cass County Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drugs Safety Solutions.
All right, well, thank you. Now, you're the current chairperson of the MCRUD Steering Committee. How long have you been a part of that steering committee?
I've been part of the MCRUD Steering Committee for 10 years.
Wow.
I've been the chair for the last 5.
5 years. So you've got to see some of the changes that MCRUD's been around for 16 years. You've got to see some of the changes that have happened kind of over more than half of the coalition's lifetime. What are some of the changes that you've seen or some of the transitions that you've been involved with?
Well, I would say I would describe it as maturing. When I first came in, MCRUD was about 5 years old. I think we were 5, 6 years old, just had celebrated their birthday. And there was a lot of people there who had just started into prevention. Prevention was just really starting to come of its own. And MCRUD has since then moved on into deeper prevention activities such as addressing policy, keeping the coalitions informed regarding what's going on in the legislators, with the legislators, and in different policies around the state that are working for other communities.
Sure. What was for you, what was the take back from being a part of the MCRUD Steering Committee? What were some of the things that you were able to use back at your home job that kind of made it easier for your supervisors to be able to say, sure, we're okay with, with EJ going up to those meetings monthly?
Well, along with just learning what other preventionists are doing in their counties, how they're addressing specific issues, especially the underage drinking issues, which can be very different from community to community. Some communities have full buy-in, some communities can't even get the door to creak. So it's just great to hear how people are addressing their roadblocks and as well as the successes they're having. I forgot the question.
What are some of the things that you've taken back to your counties down in Southwest Michigan as a result of you being involved with MCRUD?
Along with learning, what others are doing in the county, I have had great networking contacts through MCRUD and through MCRUD activities, and everything from state level contacts to some local contacts to some professional contacts, which has led to me being able to bring in some professional presenters, speakers, trainers for both my law enforcement, my community at large, as well as schools and youth groups.
Sure. Now MCRUD has worked a lot with GRID, which is the Grand Rapids Institute for Information Democracy. That we've worked with them a lot on creating media pieces, mostly public service announcements, that kind of thing with young people around underage drinking. And I know that locally you've done a lot of that work, again, down in your corner of the state. What are some of the crazy things that you all have done with MCRUD and with GRID as far as getting the message out about underage drinking in your corner?
Well, first of all, I would recommend GRID to anyone who is looking to do any kind of media work with youth or even with adults, as well as the literacy, the filming, the way to get it distributed and get it out there into the market. We've had a lot of fun working with the kids and with Gerb and Jeff. They're awesome with the kids. The kids get way into it. They're very creative. We've borrowed friends' houses while they were at work and had mock parties, and we've had police officers arresting children out in front of the school. A few things that raised eyebrows and made people wonder what were we doing.
Sure.
But the kids have a great time. They love doing it. They love distributing it. The different results, be it a PSA or a short film. And the parents will also come to that and see those viewings.
Yeah. What kind of messages? I know you all have done some public service announcements that were more targeted for the adults in the community. What are some of the messages that you try to get to adults in the community about underage drinking?
Well, probably the biggest, the largest things that we want adults to know is that the providing alcohol, unfortunately, a lot of parents feel that by allowing their kids to drink at home, it's going to keep their kids safe. And we know statistically that kids are actually more likely to drink when they're not at home. They're more likely to drink more, and they're more likely to do risky things when they're drinking. And so the kids are the ones who actually have chosen to address the adult, what we refer to the adult issues under underage drinking. And they've done like the mock parties, or they've done the mock family scenes in which they address the hosting laws, as well as things that they would like the parents to know.
Yeah. Now you've been a part of, I think, two different the MCRUD regional coalitions that we've sponsored in the past. What was it like kind of being part of that network? And again, what were some of the things that your regional coalition was able to do or do easier because of their involvement with MCRUD? Well,
I've already mentioned the networking aspects of MCRUD, and as a regional coalition, we were a network of a larger number of coalitions that had also received MCRUD money either at that time or over the years, and we were able to collaborate a lot of our efforts, so we get a larger regional message across. And we have more resources, obviously, in order to do some of the things like the media literacy training or other types of, planning out for their school groups to plan out and address the different issues evolving around underage drinking.
Sure. Now, there's a prom and graduation rally, the prom grad rally that you all have done. I think in Buren County, but it's involved some of the other counties in the area, including Cass, I think, in the past. Have you seen any changes in that over the years? I remember it started.
The prom grad rally has probably really reflects a lot of how MCRUD itself has changed as a mentality. It started out as a way, because it started out as a rally to encourage local schools to address the heavy drinking and partying that goes on around prom and grad time. And basically it was just a big feel good, hang out, listen to some musicians playing positive music and get all pumped up and go back and go. It is now much more of a conference for the kids, complete with the breakout sessions. Each breakout session has either a professional speaker or media literacy training. We have the driving skills using the drunk driving goggles. We've had Bronson nurses come in and talk about the head trauma that goes with the accidents and the results of that. We've had highway traffic safety people come in and talk about the impacts of crashes and that kind of thing. So and we've also brought in trainers on how to address things in your community more on an environmental level, addressing the policies, addressing community norms and things like that.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that it has also kind of matured, as you said earlier, and become more of a skills-based thing. So outgoing chairperson, you've been the chair or co-chair for 5 years. What would you say, I hate to use the word legacy, but what kind of legacy do you think you've left with MCRUD? What are some things that you can say, yep, I was part of that?
Wow. I'd have to say a lot of it has to do with the environmental approach that MCRUD has started taking on. It had started taking on. They were taking it on just about the time I came on board as chair, and just being able to help put that into action and to bring knowledge of what an environmental change is to small community groups as well as to the prevention field as a whole.
Well, that's great. Same question I asked Janine, if you could kind of wave your magic wand on the way out and say, this is where MCRUD needs to be in 5 years. Where do you wish MCRUD could be in 5 years?
Still growing, still addressing the current issues that are not only address the issues that preventionists are hitting, the walls that they're hitting and the needs that they're needing, but also what the communities are needing. Having a stronger voice among our legislators and our lawmakers, as well as just a larger, diverse membership. It's a great way to. I always look at MCRUD as the hub. You come to the hub and you get all the spokes. You get the other preventionists. You get what's going on here in Lansing, and you get what's going on around in the country as far as benefits of what other communities are doing.
Sure. Last question. You've been around long enough that you got to see MCRUD transition from their previous coordinator to their new coordinator. Which coordinator do you like the best?
Wow.
You don't have to answer that one.
The first one had great lunch options.
Great lunch options, sure. I'm glad we were good for something there. The real last question, is there anything you'd want to share about your time with MCRUD or things that have happened locally because of MCRUD or anything that I haven't asked you that you feel is important to say, hey, don't forget about this?
Yeah, I really feel that our area, this is the second county that I have worked in, really addresses underage drinking, and a lot of that has to do with MCRUD, bringing that issue up to the forefront. It's very easy for that to get pushed back by what I refer to as the drug in vogue, when meth was at its peak. Right now it's prescription drugs, and not that those are not issues, but they have a more urgent call to them sometimes. Underage drinking is one of our largest problems. It's been one of our largest problems all along, and it's always there. And MCRUD is always going, hey, don't forget, this is where it starts. This is where we need to address it.
So having done so many of the public service announcements, the prom and grad rallies over the years, all the different initiatives that you've been involved with youth, have you seen an impact on the young people that have been involved, the high school students that started out? When you started with MCRUD, if those kids were juniors and seniors, they're probably graduating from college right now. So what kind of impact have you seen on those young people? Have any of them come back? How's that go?
Well, we are a small community, and nobody seems to go too far. So we have definitely seen a return of a lot of our students. We've had a couple actually intern with our agencies as in their field, be it social, usually some type of human service field that they need internship in. So they internship with us, and they bring with it when we're in our youth coalitions, they're bringing in, well, when we were there, this is what we did. Oh, I remember how we did that. And we've had a couple of them move on into their college life and take that mentality and take that activism with them.
That's great. Now, as a parent, you said you've been involved with MCRUD for 10 years now. Your kids have different levels of grown up in your time with MCRUD. Do you find yourself a better parent, a more diligent parent, a more frightened parent? How's that worked?
All the above.
Yeah.
More diligent, and probably one of the biggest things I learned is just because you think you talk to your kids about drugs doesn't mean they heard you talk to them about drugs.
Okay.
And so I'm very quick to go, oh, by the way, this was a drug talk. I mean, I'll be very clear. And it's gotten to be kind of a joke.
Yeah.
But my children are professional volunteers.
Yeah.
They have volunteered at every event that we've ever did that they were available.
Yeah.
They've participated in the prom grad rallies I have one that's way out of high school, and the other one's coming up through high school, and this will be her first year of going to the prom grad rally, and she's looking for it. It's become an expectation, institution. It's the expectation of what the juniors and seniors get to do in the county. So she's looking forward to attending that, and so as a parent, it helps me be more aware, practice what I preach, and as well as keep my eye on the kids. If you really want to know what's going on, take a whole bunch of them in the back of your van and pretend you're not there.
Yeah.
They'll tell you a lot. They don't even know.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, again, thank you for your time. We certainly appreciate all the time you've given MCRUD over the years, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Break the pattern of underage drinking.
Never serve alcohol to minors.
Not even in your own home.
Teens are watching you.
If you drink, teens will notice how much. If you want to address the problem,
we have to know as much as we can about it.
So when you hear about domestic abuse or teen suicide,
ask if alcohol was involved.
None of us can do it alone.
Help us get started right now.
It's as easy as 1,
2,
3. Adults, it's on you.
Next, we're going to talk to Mike Tobias. Mike is the coordinator for the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking. Mike, can you talk a little bit about kind of how long you've been with MCRUD? How long have you been the coordinator? I know you were on the steering committee before being hired on. And what's your role with MCRUD?
Well, I've been with MCRUD for about 12 years, going back to the second annual MCRUD conference. I saw Penny Norton speak about underage drinking, and I was kind of hooked from that point on. I was past co-chair for a few years, and I've been the coordinator just over 2 years now.
Just over 2 years. All right. And what was it, I guess, how did you come to get involved with underage drinking? You said you were at the second annual MCRUD conference. What brought you to that conference? How'd you end up in this field?
I don't remember specifically how I ended up at that conference, but I worked a lot in human services. I worked on an inpatient psychiatric unit. I worked with kids who are expelled from school, people living with HIV and AIDS, did some in treatment. So I had a lot of different experiences, and I saw a lot of the revolving door, so to speak, people going in and out of treatment. I just thought prevention was a better way to go. Came to the conference, like I said, heard Penny Norton speak. I really took to it, and so I just really enjoy prevention. See a lot of value in it.
Sure. So you, I know that you were involved in Shiawassee County as a volunteer for quite a few years too with MCRUD. What changes, you've been around for just a little bit longer than EJ was, what kind of changes or what significant changes have you seen going on in the last 12 years with MCRUD and really with underage drinking prevention?
Okay. But let me talk about Shiawassee a little bit.
Sure.
Shiawassee, we have a Shiawassee Task Force on Prevention Stop. And really the roots of that do go back to MCRUD. We were a regional coalition some years ago, but they're still in existence. I still try to go to those meetings when I can. As far as MCRUD and changes over 12 years, I think we're going through a little bit of kind of finding our identity again. Historically, we've had a lot of emphasis on working with youth, involving them in prevention. Mm-hmm. We want to get back to that a little bit more. Back in the early days, as you know, we had a lot more funding behind it. And so we're able to go to national conferences, send youth to some of these conferences. And I was really blessed to see a lot of great speakers, a lot of good information, which has helped me, become a better, I think, MCRUD coordinator today.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What are some of the, you mentioned that, we've had youth before at different parts of the state and statewide conferences as well as national conferences. What are some things that you brought back from some of those national conferences, whether they're thoughts or activities or kind of directions you've wanted to go with MCRUD? What have you brought back from those?
Well, just in a broad terms, it really got me looking at policy issues. Mm-hmm. It could be policies around fairs and festivals, how to make sure that the community is safe, to statewide policy about keg tracking laws. Mm-hmm. MCRUD is pretty involved with closing some loopholes with the minor in possession law some years ago. We've discovered great trainers, some of the best trainers, I think, across the country through national conferences that MCRUD allowed me to go to. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about people like Nigel and John Underwood. So we've done a lot of great work with GRID. And so more than anything, just it's opened my eyes to of all the things that can be done. When I first got into prevention, first got along with MCRUD, it was very good to hear what's going on locally, where the things gives you good ideas of what to do. Mm-hmm. But I think in the beginning, there's a little bit of a sense of, is this going to happen? It's underage drinking, kids are going to do it. There's not much you can do.
Right.
And I totally don't see it that way now. I see there's lots of solutions to underage drinking prevention. Mm-hmm. I've been able to see some of those solutions through some of these conferences I've been able to go to.
Sure, yeah. What has happened with underage drinking in the state of Michigan over the years? You mentioned it was, at one point, it was kind of a throw our hands up, kids will be kids, they're going to do it anyway. Are there more kids drinking today, less kids drinking? Where do we stand?
We've made some very good progress around underage drinking prevention as far as 30-day use of alcohol has gone down, I believe, from about 55% in 1997 to maybe 38% in 2009, something around those lines.
Wow.
Good. I mean, back in the 80s when you and I went to high school, it was the rates were really high. Mm-hmm. I still think we are kind of feeling the lingering effects of the age limit being, raised from 18 to 21. So I think there's still that attitude about, they're old enough to serve for our country, they can still drink. But we know a lot more about, alcohol really negatively affects the developing brains. And
sure.
So we just have a lot more information to go on now. So we understand that 21 is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, as long as you bring that up, we do have a lot of people not only serving in the military, but coming back from the military. There are a lot of people that think that if you're old enough to vote and you're old enough to go off and fight for our country, gee, you should be able to have a drink. When you hear that, kind of what kind of responses can you give them? What's the answer to that?
Right. And I can see how that resonates, but like I said, we know a lot more about young people's developing brains, and we know that alcohol is harmful. There's lots of research that shows that the 21 minimum legal drinking age works. It saves lives, and that's what we're about. We're about public health and safety. Mm-hmm. We know that there's all kinds of laws. You have to be, 16 to drive. I mean, it's just, I don't see a problem with it at all. And I would rather see people move the age back to 21 when you enter the military than if that was the two choices. But I very much support, the 21 minimum legal drinking age, and the evidence supports it as well.
Sure. I'd ask EJ, and I know you're a parent, do you think your involvement with MCRUD or just with underage drinking prevention in general, has that impacted how you parent your kids, or do you tend to be more strict, do you think, or less strict, or how has that affected you?
It's hard to say. I definitely, as you get older, I think you do get wiser and you get smarter, hopefully.
Sure.
So that's definitely had an impact. But I definitely see prevention is kind of part of who I am, I think. And so as a parent, it's just a natural. You want the best for your children. You want to prevent them from the harms. I've done a lot of coaching too, youth coaching. I see a lot of these things, being a parent, coach, prevention, they all go hand in hand to me. You're trying to help develop your children into healthy adults.
Sure, yeah. Now, you've mentioned a couple times now kind of the negative impacts that we know about now and the harms that underage drinking causes. What are some of those things? If a parent were to say to you, really, it's no big deal, my kid, You know, they're pretty mature at 16. They make pretty good decisions, and I really trust them. We talk about everything. So what's the big deal if my 16 or 17-year-old wants to drink a couple beers? What are some of the things that we know now that we didn't know 10 years ago?
First, I'd say, are you crazy? I mean, I've had teenagers, and my kids are still teenagers, and on the best days, it's hard for them to make a good decision, just because their brains are not developed. But you start to splash around with alcohol, different drugs, it makes the decision-making much more difficult.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, again, the research tells us that, you know, it's harmful to the brains. Like I said, just from seeing my own kids, they have enough time. It's difficult enough for them to make good decisions on a good day, so to speak.
Right.
So I just don't think, you know, the longer you can wait, that's kind of the goal. The longer you can keep kids from drinking, you know, get closer to age 21, the less likely they're going to have problems later on in life.
Sure. Now, are you... a lot of people say that MCRUD is kind of a prohibitionist group. I mean, are you okay with adults using alcohol? Are you okay with, you know, people drinking as long as they're not doing stupid things, drinking and driving, things like that? Is MCRUD a prohibitionist group, or?
Absolutely not. MCRUD is totally okay with adults drinking in a responsible way. We are about preventing underage drinking. We want to prevent excessive alcohol use by adults too, because that's a significant problem by itself. Sure. We certainly don't want people out there drinking and driving. That causes problems for a lot of people. But we do not see a problem with adults drinking, you know, in a responsible manner.
So it's not a matter of the kind of the evils of all alcohol.
No,
it really is. There's an appropriate time and place, and before 21, it's just not okay.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, the vast majority of adults drink in appropriate ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, some people obviously don't need to drink for if they have issues with alcoholism or something like that. But many people use alcohol in appropriate ways.
Now, what are some of the groups, you've been around long enough that you've been able to kind of see this happen, and then transitioning from being a volunteer to being the coordinator, who are some of the statewide groups that you're working with now that, you know, even 5 years ago or 6 years ago, MCRUD might have said, I'm not sure if we want to work with them? Who are some of the people you've started partnering with?
Well, we are working, I think we're working closer than ever with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, or at least we're reaching out to them. We're trying to work with them in a closer way, because we recognize they do a lot of, you know, they make a lot of decisions that affect how alcohol is used and distributed in Michigan. So that's definitely one partner that we're looking at.
Now, their job, the Liquor Control Commission, they're part of state government, and what exactly is it that they do?
Well, they have 5 commissioners, and they're appointed by the governor's office, by the governor more or less. And like I said, they make a lot of decisions around how alcohol is used, transported, sold in Michigan.
Okay.
3 of the commissioners kind of set the policy. They're administrative commissioners, so they're kind of key people that they have important roles, and I don't think enough people know about them or enough people talk to them about the issue of alcohol, because it does cost all of us in Michigan a lot of money.
Sure, sure. So who are some of the other groups? You mentioned liquor control. Who else?
You know, one of the most interesting groups that we see ourselves talking with more are groups from the industry, from the alcohol beverage industry. In the past, we've seen them more as kind of monolithic. They're all just kind of the alcohol beverage industry. And certainly we are wary of them. They have a lot of political clout. They do a lot of things we disagree with. But we are trying to reach out more to those groups. I'm talking like Michigan Beer and Wine Wholesalers, Michigan Licensed Beverage Association. Those groups, we're trying to see if there might be some common ground issues. But it's been a little difficult because there's not a lot of trust on either side.
Right.
But we do think that, and I think this is a change I've seen over 12 years. I mean, I remember the early days, you know, I was much more skeptical of trying to even talk with the industry.
Sure.
But now I recognize, you know, maybe we should at least be talking to them, you know, at some point to see what they're up to. At the very least, they're good at what they do. I mean, we need to stay on top of what they're doing, I guess.
Yeah. What kind of common ground can there be with the alcohol industry?
Yeah, it's you know, the tax issue is probably not a common ground issue.
Increasing the beer tax.
I guess yes, and I do believe that most. I mean, I have a hard time saying it. But I want to believe that, you know, most people do not want to see people drinking and driving. Most people do not want to see kids getting their hands on alcohol, and that probably goes along with the industry. You know, they say that, and I probably believe them. I guess we disagree sometimes on how are we going to keep kids from drinking. How are we going to prevent drunk driving? But the common ground issue is we both see it as a problem that needs to be addressed.
Right.
But it's an ongoing, process. We're gonna.
Sure. Well, I certainly appreciate the work that you've been able to do with them over the last couple of years, and I've seen great strides taken as far as trying to partner with them and trying to find some of that common ground that again, 10 years ago, there wasn't even discussion about there being common ground. So I certainly commend both you and them. I mean, like you said, there's not a lot of trust on both sides. So I think it's good that they're able to talk to us and you've been able to talk to them so much.
Right. And I think we've come a long way in that regard, I guess, because I do remember when the beer and wine wholesalers reached out to MCRUD years ago about the direct shipping of wine in Michigan. And I remember I was probably one of the very loudest people saying, you know what, I don't want anything to do with them.
You were.
I don't think we need to be talking with beer and wine wholesalers.
Right.
I guess I'd like to say we learned a little bit in the last 12 years maybe. So. Yeah.
We have this image of kind of the backroom deals and the smoke-filled boardrooms and things like that. They're all true. What are some interesting stories or some interesting things that have come out of your meetings with folks who are working with the alcohol beverage industry?
Right. Well, this is, to be honest, it's been quite a learning experience, and I'll say it's been a good learning experience. But really, some of these groups, I won't even mention their names, but like I said, I really had a hard time actually seeing some of the people of these groups as really human beings, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So by working with them, you see them as more human beings. But I've sat in rooms where, they have, I don't know how much is posturing, how much is true, but they've talked about how if something goes to the legislature, they hope it goes to the legislature because we will crush them if it goes. I mean, they feel like they have such a handle on the legislature, and they probably do to some extent. But that's just like, it's a mind-boggling when I hear them talk so candid sometimes about their power, or else, I say, I don't know if it's true or not, but to hear them talk like it is telling to me.
Yeah. How important is it for prevention people to get involved in the whole, whether it's local at the school board level or their own, even parents as members of the PTA or school board, city council, county commissions, contacting your state legislators, how important it is for just the average person to get involved with that process? Because a lot of people think, well, geez, that's just too big for me. I can't compete against the lobbyists and the special interest groups, and I don't even know what a special interest group is. But how important is it for me, just as an average citizen, to get involved in the policymaking process?
I think it's absolutely extremely important. I think it doesn't have to be cumbersome. It could be simply picking up your phone and calling your school board member, calling your city council person, calling your lawmaker, sending an email. It could just be 5-10 minutes. But as a former school board member, I really appreciated when people contacted me, particularly on the front end of an issue.
Yeah.
It's not too great when they contact you on the back end. They're upset with you for X, Y, and Z. But I think it's incredibly important to talk to all lawmakers. So I always encourage people to get involved with their decision makers, policy makers. And young people have been some of the greatest voices to do that. And so very, very important.
Great. So how do you reconcile? I know that MCRUD gets a lot of their funding through state and federal funds, and none of that money can be used for lobbying, doing direct lobbying. How do you work with policymakers and it not be lobbying?
Well, we educate them. We have to be very conscious of, we don't have, MCRUD never has a position on, for the most part, we don't have positions on bills. But we do try to educate people. There's some recommendations coming out right now from the Office of Regulatory Reinvention. They're talking about, in a nutshell, making it easier to get licenses, having more liquor licenses. We just want to make sure they have the research about, outlet density. The more liquor licenses you put into an area, the potential more problems you're going to have. So we'll provide them some documents, from the CDC. It's good if your lawmaker asks you, for your opinion, then you can give it to them. So if you can work with your lawmaker to be a resource for them, then it's not lobbying if they ask you for your, opinion on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But there's lots of things you can do that are not lobbying. It's simply, getting information out there. Just being aware of what's going on, and if you care enough, contact that person you need to, and go from there.
So you've been the coordinator, you said, for about 2 years now. You've been through a couple MCRUD birthday celebrations. Looking back just in the 2 years you've been the coordinator, what would you say is the one thing that you're the most excited that you've seen happen or that you've been part of so far as the coordinator?
Well, it's been, like I said, this whole process of the Office of Regulatory Reinvention, looking at Michigan's liquor code. Just seeing this whole process play out has been very interesting. And like I said, we're very interested in policy issues and getting more involved in policy issues. Like I said, the funding's changed quite a bit, so we don't have as much funding behind us as we used to. So it's not been able. We haven't been able to do like conferences or different things like that as much as we used to. But I would say watching this Office of Regulatory Reinvention and trying to work with Liquor Control Commission in a stronger way has been a real positive thing.
Sure.
The last couple of years.
And if you, I ask EJ and Janine both, I'm hoping that you are hoping to be a part of MCRUD in 5 years. But if you had to leave tomorrow and could kind of wave your magic wand, where would you hope MCRUD will be 5 years from now? I hope that when the lawmakers, the media, and just everyday moms and dads, when they start to think about alcohol issues, I want them to think, what does MCRUD think about this? So often you see the industry get quoted in papers or people know about them. I want MCRUD, people know who Mothers Against Drunk Driving are. I want our name recognition up there like that. I want people to know MCRUD they're the Michigan Coalition to Reduce Underage Drinking. They're fighting for us in Lansing to make sure that keep our community safe. So that's what I'd like to see. That's a great vision. Thanks. Is there anything that you want to share? Any questions that I haven't asked, or anything that you want to make sure gets mentioned, on behalf of MCRUD before we wrap up? I just had a chance to think in the last 12 years some of the things that we've been involved with, and it made me think. The Spikes was a product that was, you may remember it, I don't have it with me, but the Spikes was a product that Anheuser-Busch put out, and it was a little bottle, it looked like kind of a nail polish bottle about this size, and you would spike your drink with it. And public health advocates were really upset about those because of the easy way to hide them and different things like that. I would say MCRUD was on the very front end of getting those off the market. We rallied our troops in Michigan, had them contact Anheuser-Busch. And like I said, we were on the front end of that, I think, and I think we were helpful in getting those products off the market. Again, MCRUD was on the very front end of the alcoholic energy drink issue. Recognized that was a concern. We educated our people out there. We started to work with the Liquor Control Commission on that. And those ultimately got banned in Michigan, and it led to some national things happening. Again, that was something MCRUD was on the front end of. So I just I think back, those are some of the real big successes, big impacts that MCRUD has had, I think, over the years. That's great. Well, it sounds like it's a good start, and MCRUD's really building some positive momentum. So I do look forward to seeing kind of what's going to happen in the next 5 years. It'll be exciting to look back 5 years from now and say, yep, we did that. Yep, our 21st birthday party will be a big bash. Yeah, our 21st, you're right, our 21st birthday party will be in 5 years. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens when MCRUD comes of age. So. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I certainly appreciate you kind of talking through the last few years. And again, we look forward to seeing where we'll be in 5 years. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
My name is Jordan Thompson, and I go to Sexton High School.
Hi, my name is Carmen Carranza. I attend Lansing Eastern High School.
Hi, I'm Zachary Fleming. I'm from Eastern High School.
Hi, my name is Ryan Eckerman. I go to Sexton High School.
Hi, my name is Jaleesa Atkins, and I go to Everett High School.
Hello, my name is Estefania Hennig, and I'm a senior at Eastern High School.
My name is Taylor DeBerry, and I go to Everett High School.
Hi, I'm Kevin Reeves, and I go to Lansing Eastern High School.
We are your students, but we're also your average everyday teen, whatever that means.
That means that even though we spend a lot of time here in this school with you as our teachers, we are also part of a larger community of teens throughout Lansing.
Outside of school, we are someone's son, someone's daughter, and someone's friend. And we know you care about us. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a part of the Lansing School District.
And we also know that sometimes us and our friends do stuff that you know we shouldn't do.
Sometimes. Those things are against the rules.
And part of your job is to hold us accountable and make us face the consequences of our actions.
First, a couple of things we want you to understand.
1. Not all of us drink. Ingham County data shows that only 43% of high school seniors in our county have used alcohol in the last 30 days. That's less than half of us.
The second thing that we want you to think about is what alcohol is really doing to us as teens.
We are going to talk a little bit about our brains and where they are as adolescents.
Your brain and my brain is made up of 4 lobes and 2 clusters. Each lobe and cluster has a specific job, and it's made up of gray matter and white matter. The gray matter is where the electrical and chemical stuff goes on that makes up our thoughts, memories, emotions, and personality. The white matter is the stuff that connects everything together, passes the signals from cell to cell and from lobe to lobe. Now some people will tell you that us teens are not always real good with moral reasoning and decision making. It turns out that some people are right. Apparently the brain matures from the top to the bottom and the back to the front. That means we, temporal, are functioning way before they, frontal, are. In addition to that, our white matter. You remember white matter, the parts that send messages between cells and lobes? Our white matter isn't fully developed until a few years after we leave our high schools behind. So messages that fire from your brain to your muscles and back to your brain are moving at a lightning speed and are involving as much data as is needed to make important decisions and perform complex tasks and make complex decisions. This includes all of your memories and experiences. My brain, not so much. And I have fewer memories and less experience to draw from. I'm still learning life's lessons, so this is my brain on a good day.
And this is what goes on once a drink or two is added to my brain.
So I hope you can draw from this that alcohol impairs us much quicker and in a more extreme way than it does you.
In addition to this, there's a lot of research that points out that the earlier we start using alcohol, the better the chances of us ending up having issues with alcohol and addiction later in life.
So, if I start drinking when I'm 21 years old, I have about a 2.5% chance of becoming addicted to alcohol.
That means there's very little chance that my brain will tell me that I need alcohol to survive.
If I start drinking when I am 15, I have about a 9% chance of becoming an alcoholic.
And if I start when I am 12, I have about a 16% chance of becoming an alcoholic later on.
I think you get the idea. This isn't just about alcohol being illegal to use. It's about us and our friends not getting messed up any worse that adolescence is supposed to mess us up.
You may be thinking, what can I do? Our job is to tell you what we want you to do. To send a message that underage drinking is not okay.
Okay, first, we want you to know that your classroom is your classroom.
Some of us have noticed that sometimes our friends like to brag about the parties over the weekend.
Or how drunk they were, or what they did at the party and not remember it.
We understand that sometimes it's easier to just keep walking and ignore the conversation.
But we feel like this is just sending the message that you don't care about us.
We know what's wrong, you know what's wrong, and we know that you know what's wrong. Here is what we suggest.
We want you to confront this behavior. We understand that you can't control what we do over the weekend or summer vacation.
But we do know that you can take a stand in your classroom and not tolerate the bragging about it.
So, take a stand, and you know we've got your back. The next thing you can do might take a little more thinking, but we think you can handle it.
We want you to understand the things we see, hear, and experience all contribute to who we are and what we choose to do.
We live in the world where advertisements constantly remind us how attractive alcohol use is.
And there's a bunch of research out there that shows that for those of us who are minorities, especially Hispanics and African Americans, alcohol advertising is even more targeted towards us.
And we think you can do a few things here in your classroom to counter all that alcohol advertisement overexposure.
First, Help us think critically about the media we are exposed to, such as advertising, movies, song lyrics, and TV shows, and commercials.
Second, when you can, incorporate into your lesson plans or class projects the effect of alcohol on us, economically, socially, and physically.
It would be nice if there's an easy way for you to tell who's using alcohol and who isn't. Unfortunately, you aren't superhuman, so here are a few things that you can look for.
Is a student acting different on their way into class? Are the quiet ones suddenly not so quiet, or the loud ones suddenly turning quiet?
Do they look off in the way they walk, stand, or sit in their desk? When you are near them, can you smell alcohol? Are they suddenly acting different towards you or towards their schoolwork?
Are they moodier than usual? Do they seem to be hanging out with a new group of friends? Are they breaking away from you or from their normal group of friends? Are other students or staff mentioning different behavior from them? Are they one of the students that we mentioned earlier that is always talking about the big party or getting really drunk last weekend? We think you get the idea.
Now, once you get a pretty good idea that one of your students, one of our friends, is using alcohol, please remember that you have a duty to take action, even if you don't have proof. Also, keep in mind that all of other students in your classrooms are watching you to see how much you really do care.
If you don't do anything, we all assume that you are okay with us drinking. Please remember, any alcohol used by a teen is illegal and can lead to some really bad things.
So in conclusion, alcohol is bad for us teens. We know it, you know it, but that by itself won't stop all our friends from using it.
It's bad for our bodies. It's bad for our future. You can play a role in how we think and feel about underage alcohol use.
If you ignore it, you are telling us it is no big deal. We need you to tell us that using alcohol is not okay.
You can tell us by creating an environment in your classroom that sends a clear message that it's not okay.
You can tell us by the activities and lessons you can incorporate into your curriculum.
And you can tell us by reporting it when you suspect that one of our friends is using alcohol during school hours and or during school activities.
We are counting on you.